In this portion of our conversation, Tia talks about how she has been able to defend her value against the biggest competitors in the world by having a maniacal focus on the customer. Listen through to hear her blueprint you can follow to give your brand the same level of protection. Hello again, and what a treat I have for you today. We have the one, the only Tia Newcomer. She is the CEO of Caring Bridge, and I had the privilege of getting to know Tia whenever we actually co-chaired an Opportunity Knocks group for college students at the OSU Cascades campus. Whenever our paths crossed, whenever we both lived in Bend, Oregon for a little while, and then she went to Minneapolis and I came down here to South Georgia. But she was generous enough to share her afternoon with us so that we can pick her amazing brain about all things marketing. So, Tia, welcome and thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you, Amy. I am thrilled to be here. Thrilled. I can't wait for the conversation because I know you're going to ask me good and tough questions.
I hope so. And I know that you will be up for them. So why don't you just go ahead and get started by telling us what it is that you are doing in your most current role right now? What's your agenda? What are some of your challenges? What is it that you're trying to accomplish as CEO of Caring Bridge?
Absolutely. So Caring Bridge, CEO of Caring Bridge. Caring Bridge, what is Caring Bridge? I get that question sometimes. And Caring Bridge is a no-cost, we are a nonprofit, we're a no-cost platform. And what we do is we surround family caregivers with the support that they need while they care for a loved one that's going on a health journey. And so when you think about how we do that, we have tools that we share that helps them document their health journey and that health journey that they're supporting. We simplify care coordination. So there's a lot of stressors that are involved with care coordination. And so we help simplify that. And we also connect them with a supportive community. And that's how we started. It was really out of that feeling of being overwhelmed when someone is either diagnosed or going through a health journey, that feeling of overwhelm when everyone's asking what's happening and all you're trying to do is actually focus on getting your loved one healed and better. And so, gosh, challenges. Well, let me start with, we have this great, I'll start with the positive, which is when we've been around for over 25 years. And so the legacy of our platform is strong. Think about it. We were born out of a basement, out of that acute need to communicate with a lot of people about a baby that was in the NICU that ended up passing away about 9 days later. So if you think of that in 1997, the World Wide Web was just born 2 years prior to that. Blogs were just starting to be a thing, and it was actually where people had to code. And so think about where we are in the transformation of technology that has happened and that we have survived. By the way, we still have some of that code that our founder, Sana Mering, she's a woman, amazing woman of STEM and visionary, really. That code that she coded in her basement still exists on, some of the code that we use today. So if you imagine how we have survived that technological transition from a blog, from websites to now mobile app to responsive web to all of the modalities that people expect, whether it be video or text or voice. And oh, by the way, those two companies, Facebook, Instagram, now one, Meta, effectively, you could say they do the same thing that Caring Bridge does. So how have we survived? And that's the question we've been digging into. Like, what is the thing that captures the hearts and minds of people to Caring Bridge? And there's three things really, that we've anchored to. One is that nonprofit status and the fact that we don't sell advertising creates a big amount of trust with our platform. That trust also extends when you think about healthcare in general. We're enabling people to capture some of their most tenuous and private and medically related issues, both mentally, socially, and physically. And that's pretty private data. And so our ability, even, not a lot of people trust the healthcare system in general. So we've been able to ride that wave as a nonprofit that has anchored to not selling data and really sustains on donations, as part of that wave that we've been able to ride and overcome. When you think about it, Google, Facebook, Instagram, they should have probably taken us out a long time ago because they do effectively the same thing. So that trust, being a nonprofit. And then I think the third thing is, if you look out there, there are people that are certainly using TikTok, Instagram, Facebook for documenting their health journey. However, most of them want it to be they don't want to go to their whole network, right? So when we talk about us being able to activate that supportive community, we really give you that community of choice. And that has been a big benefit. So that's the positive. What headwinds are we facing? And I would say this is similar to a lot of other organizations and companies out there. We know that there's an economic headwinds. They just are. Are we in a recession? Are we not? Inflation is real, right? I mean, it's, I think, effectively 12 to 18%. So for a nonprofit that relies, and we are very different too, we have 90% of our revenues are from single individual donors. So what that
Oh,
means
wow.
is, yeah, it's huge, and not a lot of most nonprofits survive on big major donors that,
Right.
effectively make up 80% of their revenue. We survive on average $54 donation. And about 82% of people that are donating only donate that one time as they're supporting that person on that health journey. So if you think about $54 and you think about inflation, that puts some pressure on that ability to donate. So that's a challenge that we're facing. The second is, and again, this is no different than anyone else, any other CEO I talk to, resource constraints. And that's just a reality that you live with in any company, for profit or nonprofit. And it's not necessarily that more resources equals get more done. However, when you're lean, there are trade-offs that happen within that effectively either slow you down or, well, they slow you down in certain areas. So it's always a prioritization game, which is fun at times, and other times it's challenging. So that's what I would say our challenges are. Last I would say is reach. So I always talk to my team, and this will probably resonate with your students. The three big challenges we have, I talked about revenue. Reach is the second one. And reach effectively, we have grown to the size we have 300,000 people a day coming and interacting, engaging in CaringBridge. So 300 daily active users for those of you guys studying digital marketing. So it's pretty powerful. When we think of reach, so that has, for 25 years, that's all been word of mouth. We spend less than $1 million on a marketing budget a year. That's unheard of. If I think about the reach that we have and I apply it to other for-profit companies, that marketing budget is typically between 8 and 10 million. So that reach challenge for us is how do we reach more people with the dollars we have and or the business model that we have. So that's revenue, reach, and then impact is the third one, challenge. And impact is really, what is the difference we make in people's lives? How do we how I'll give you the example of if you know Habitat for Humanity, they build houses for people that aren't able to afford a house, and then they effectively sell that house at a lower cost, lower down payment, etc. They have what we call a box of nails model. So if I'm donating to Habitat for Humanity, I know exactly my $5 paid for a nail, or my $1,000 paid for a window, right? So you can actually tangibly feel the connection to your donation. So there's an emotional, inspirational connection. For CaringBridge, it's much harder to, or it has been harder to measure. And so we're doing a lot of work. We actually received a grant to field some research on what is the impact we make on the world. And that's important because that then impacts our reach and our revenue. So those are our three challenges, not easily overcome, but plans to do so.
Oh, I love it. If there's anybody that I know that will be able to tackle those and completely own those challenges and find ways to turn them into opportunities, that will be you. So I look forward to continuing to follow along. So I want to come back because I'm a researcher at heart. So I want to come back to what you just said about research momentarily. But before that, Um, so I love what you said that you should have been taken out by your competitors. So I'm gonna drop a little, teacher talk in right now. So that would have been considered like not a direct competitor, right? They're not nonprofits. They're not specifically in the healthcare space, but they offer something that consumers could use as a potential substitute. So if we're looking in, you know, Porter's five forces or a 5C analysis or a SWOT, right? They're going to go in on one of those categories. So you talk about in your LinkedIn bio, and I love this, and you've demonstrated this throughout your entire career, value creation. You've been able to ward off Google, an absolute behemoth, and Meta, a couple of behemoths, and you're still relevant. Can you talk about that? You didn't say value, but ultimately that's why you're still here, is because you're offering some value. Can you talk about the whole notion of value creation, your perspective on that, not just now, but throughout your entire career, how you go about uncovering and delivering that value for customers?
Absolutely. So, one sentence or maybe a couple of words, it's that maniacal focus on the customer. So start with the end in mind. What does the customer need? And then design backwards. And that is value creation. It will sustain throughout time. Caringbridge is an example. Let's think about Facebook for a moment as a comparison. They started out uh, after the initial Mark Zuckerberg, ideation of rating college women. Let's put that aside for a moment. As they launched into a bigger, entity that we all started using, it was really, if you thought about their intentions at the beginning were in the right place, right? Let's connect people in a way that's almost flat, makes the world flat. And so that intention was there. As they started to grow, profitability comes in the picture. You start and think about the privacy issues that people have, the creepiness factors, we call it, that you're getting targeted, the um, data that's showing up, or the feeds that are showing up that are spreading untruths, as we call them. And so all of if they started to get away from that customer and designing back, and that has impacted them
Yeah.
greatly. They're still making billions of dollars, but when you just think about the trust, if you think, and who knows what will happen in the future, but that's an example of where if you start straying away from that customer first and then design backwards, that will erode your value creation. So I would just encourage people, and this will connect to that research piece, right? How do you pivot? Because a lot of time, and I get in the same thing, same trap, because it's easy for me to go to the execution, let's call it the execution frameworks, right? And you need to tie it back to, is this what is best for the customer? And by the way, sometimes the customer doesn't know what's best for that customer. And that's where research underpins what you already do know, but also maybe find nuggets that creates innovation that then delivers that customer value. So value creation, I don't think you can have short-term value creation when you are operationally efficient, but you cannot have long-term value creation if you don't focus on that customer.
Awesome. Do you have tips or any suggestions on the research that really gets you into uncovering those consumer truths of the things that they don't know, right? You can't ask a customer why, right? If you ask a
Mhm.
customer why they did something or why they bought something or why they think that they want something, they're going to apply logic afterward, right? And so, how do you go about, like you just said, tapping into maybe they don't even know, they don't really know what they want or they don't know what's best for them? How do you go about, keeping that? And I like how you said it. I'm going to butcher it. The maniacal, is that what you said? Maniacal focus.
Maniacal, yes, no problem.
Maniacal, maniacal
Yes.
focus on the customer, right? So, talk to us about some specific research tactics that will help with that.
Yeah, I love that question because there's multiple choice points, and I would say it doesn't always have to be expensive, and it doesn't always have to be quantitative. So qualitative, quantitative, both have a place and both are important. I will start with a story to bring it to life. You all may have already studied this, but it's the McDonald's shake story and the market research that happened at McDonald's that led to this insight. And the research was literally people standing outside the McDonald's store in the morning. They couldn't figure out why shake sales were stronger in the morning, no matter how they advertised, how they did things. They were like, why do we have so many shake sales in the morning? And they wanted to capitalize on that profitability, but also really understand like what maybe there's a growth opportunity here. And so in a short story, they had people outside of 20 stores catching people as they were coming out with their shake. It wasn't their egg McMuffin. It wasn't right. It was a shake. And they would intercept people and be like, hey, can we talk to you for a moment? So again, this is qualitative research where you're just interacting, again, importantly with the customer. And what they found was that that shake on your drive in, on your commute in, 30 minutes, 40 minutes, 20 minutes, whatever that commute is, you don't have anything that's dirty and spilling, that you have to wipe your hands. You can keep your hands on the wheel. You have one hand over, it has a straw, easy to drink, and it was filling. That was the other thing that they got out of these questions. Why did you get a shake instead of an egg McMuffin or instead of a, crispy tater tot thing? I forgot what it's called. Hash brown, crispy hash brown. I do love those. And so they found out these key insights, that it was easy, that it was filling and bridged them to lunch. And it kind of was a delight. They kind of felt this is like something that makes me happy. And so that they were like, oh my gosh, this is a critical insight that just told us something about why that shake is a better option for breakfast. And they started promoting it differently rather than the add-on to your dinner. Hey, get a shake on your way to work. And they had some material there that could market differently, again, based on what their user wanted and didn't quite honestly know that's what they needed, right? So now you expand that circle of people that knows they want to shake or
Yeah.
maybe need one. Yeah.
And so in the new product development literature, there's a theory, and they use that example, and it's called jobs to be done. So it is a human-centered design approach, and I know that's also something that the students would have seen on your LinkedIn as well, is that human-centered approach to design thinking. And so it is like, what is the purpose of this item that we have for sale? What is it trying to accomplish? And so that's obviously a customer is never going to be, oh, well, I need this shake to accomplish this job. But it's the marketer's responsibility, right, to translate those findings, those qualitative discoveries into the marketing nomenclature. But they needed something filling, easy, non-messy. I mean, I hate walking into work and I just dripped ketchup down my shirt, right? And then now the entire day just got off to a bad shaky start because I've got that, as opposed to, like you said, something filling coming out of a straw. So so students, make a note of that. Jobs to be done. It is a new product development, human-centered approach to new product development.
I love that. And then I'll share more of a personal story when you think about that user centricity, and the research to be done. So one of my early career jobs was with Frito-Lay PepsiCo. And I hope they still do this, because I came in as like a marketing manager, maybe a director, I can't remember, but I was in as they called it, the glass palace, wasn't out on the front line. But what Frito-Lay and PepsiCo do really well is so great, here's your role, here's your desk or your office, and now you're going to go out for 6 weeks on a route trip. And
Cool.
so the tangible experience of being on the front line, all the things that you're designing and why isn't it selling, or how is it actually merchandised in the store? What is both of the person that is delivering the thing that we're selling, how are we making their job easier? Is it like packaging? You think about packaging. You think about what are they seeing from, or what are they hearing from customers on price point, design. Like you hear so much when you're in a store or working with retail, if that's, your chosen, call it, I mean, go to doctor's offices, right? For whatever industry you're in, go to the front line. I can apply it to the same thing. So I had to do that route truck for 6 weeks, which was eye-opening, and I will never forget it. And the way I've activated that into a lot of my teams is I call it the wall of reality. And part of, because, after that, most of my teams we were in the strategic or the operational side. And so part of their development plan or their performance review was once a quarter, you go out in the market. And so what that looked like on my healthcare side is they did a ride along with a sales rep who's going into doctor's offices. And guess what? You would think that the salespeople are talking to the doctor or the nurse. Actually, no, your gatekeeper, it's the front desk receptionist. And if you can get to know them, you start to unlock the keys to the people, the decision makers you need that are behind that desk and are actually really, really busy taking care of us who are coming in on the other side. So again, wall of reality. And my team then would come back and we'd just say one sticky note. What did you learn about the customer? And that could be, our sales customer. It could be the end user customer. And so that's again, when I say, don't always think of this research, and we'll bridge to that later. There is always a place for the quantitative and the more scientific research, absolutely, because it will prove some of your qualitative.
Right.
I think, though, my messages start with really understand you can do it yourself. You can go out in the market any day. And it's one of my favorite things, no matter what role I'm in, is to just go in and get in it and see what you're hearing.
It's possible for your company to be maniacal, but not about the right thing. Stay tuned for part 2 of our conversation when Tia shares her formula for creating a company culture that gets results.